Welcome to this video tutorial with Virtual Racing School for the GTE class of the IMSA Sports Car Championship on iRacing. This week we visit Watkins Glen in its boot configuration, including the bus stop chicane, where I'll be looking at a lap driven by Jeremy Bouteloup with the 2017 Ford GT, for which he has driven in default late afternoon weather to match the official series. I'll play the lap in full for you first before then going into further analysis. Okay, so that was 1 minute 42.504. Starting off then from the list of data packs on the VRS website, we're going to choose the Ford GT 2017 IMSA data pack as driven by Jeremy Bouteloup. And we're going to choose week 2. It's going to load up the session details, where of course you can download the lap files, the replay. Jeremy's uploaded several, so you can see the development and of course the setup as well. So we're just going to click on Learn Track to load up the driving analyzer. The lap will start to play through. I will pause it and mute it, and also slow it down to half speed. And to summarize what we can see here, we've got a steering angle input traced through the duration of the lap, as well as the speed of the car, brake and throttle inputs, and live driving inputs as well. So start things off then, we'll click on turn 1 and play the lap through. Now obviously you want to keep the car fully over to the left hand side. Just switch it to chase view before the braking point. You've got these various braking markers here on the left, and also in addition to that the actual tarmac changes colour. The surface changes in colour, which happens in quite a few places during the lap, and there's also bits of dirt and stuff which you can use as braking references as well. But what I'm going to do here is just play this through, and you can see that Jeremy is braking just before that change in colour of the tarmac, but obviously he's got the car fully over to the left, brakes quite hard initially. This car's got lots of downforce, so you can afford to brake quite hard initially, as long as you start to bleed off as you turn in, and Jeremy turns in fairly early here, and he's bleeding off the brake really nicely here, nice and progressively. Doesn't suddenly let go of the brake pedal, keeps braking all the way into the apex, and you can see that he's picked up the apex really nicely. Many of the corners at Watkins Glen are heavily banked and cambered, especially at the apex. You really want to make sure that you don't miss them and end up washing wide and not taking advantage of that, because it really gives you a lot of extra grip if you can really hook up into that camber. And you can see mid corner there that Jeremy is really hard on the throttle, commits pretty much to full throttle straight away, and you can only really do that if you get the car to rotate nicely, and you can be sure that you're going to make it through the exit. Now I just want to show you this as well. You notice that Jeremy's extremely wide here on the exit. Now there's plenty of grip out here, so you could afford to do this. The only thing that you need to be concerned about is getting back onto the track by the time the grass appears here on the left, because if you're still wide, you can get into a bit of trouble there and also get a potential incident penalty. But the car's got lots of downforce, so you can really take advantage of every last bit of the circuit to get the lap time. So through turns 2 through to 4, completely flat out through here, but you do need to pay attention to your line. You want to hug this inside yellow line all the way through the right hander. Make sure you hug it all the way until that yellow line turns white, before then turning in to turn 4. This is turn 3, and then 4 is the next right hander. So yeah, just using all of the track, trying to use the minimal steering input as possible to scrub off the minimum amount of speed. So we'll take it through to the next sector. We'll just skip forward a bit, and this is the flat out entry into the bus stop chicane. Now again, there's plenty of braking markers here that you can use. So counting down 400, 300, 200, Jeremy brakes at or just before the 200 marker there, and again there's a change in tarmac which pretty much aligns with the 200 meter marker there. I think it might be in feet actually, 200 feet. Yeah, that's his braking point. It's also his turn in point, so as a result he's not able to brake too hard. If you turn in and brake hard at the same time, you're likely to lock a wheel, and of course GTE cars don't have ABS unlike GT3 cars. So he'll be aiming for a decent amount of this first curb. I'll just show you that externally. Yeah, so a decent amount of curb there, taking it through. A little bit less of the curb through the second one, so making sure that you don't clip the grass there, and then keep it tight. This is very important, that you get the car slowed down enough, and you can see here that Jeremy brakes kind of twice after that first apex to get the car slowed down, so that he's back tight and really takes advantage of the line to cut that third curb, and also cutting the final fourth curb as well. And you'll notice here on exit that Jeremy bleeds out of the throttle a few times. That's because this final curb on the right can really unsettle the car, especially if you're washing a little bit wide at this point. But Jeremy is on quite a nice line, still has to feather out of the throttle, that's fine. And then you want to turn in quite early for this next right-hander of turn 5. I'm not sure why they divide the corner names up like this, but this is the carousel. So again, not quite flat out on entry, making sure not to run too wide on entry, getting the car nice and tight. Now after that initial feather out of the throttle, Jeremy commits 100% to full throttle because the car is on a tightening line, and then to avoid the car washing out, he kind of plays with the brake, just teases the brake pedal to ensure that he's able to hug that inside curb. Now obviously with it being a carousel, it's a constant radius corner. There isn't a decent amount of banking, but the most important thing is that you keep nice and tight, and you only commit to full throttle when you know that you're not going to wash out too wide on the exit. So we just play that through. You can see the car is now starting to wash out away from the inside, but the corner's starting to finish. So he gets away with it and doesn't even need to use the exit curb, which you can use, but it's best if you try and keep tight of it. Into turn 6 then, again we've got another change in the tarmac. Jeremy's going to brake just before then, so we can see there, and he's going to turn in very shortly after braking. Again, you want to turn in nice and early, hook up with the inside of the corner nice and early, and use the banking to sort of pull you round. Now you will get a bit of understeer unless you're trailing the brake like this, so make sure that you're not just coasting through here, otherwise the car will understeer. And generally you can carry a bit more entry speed if you're willing to trail brake, because you reduce that understeer effect. as I've said. And then as soon as you feel again that the timing is right, commit to full throttle. You don't need to commit to full throttle straight away. The most important thing is that you commit hard with the pedal initially and then feather if you need to after that point. The important point is that you commit so that you get the car on the edge of traction as quickly as possible, so the car doesn't start to understeer, because obviously as you pick up the throttle you'll unload the front tyres. And then you can see on the exit there that he's just running wide on the curb using all of the track, so that's nice. And then into the toe of what is the boot section now. We'll take it through to turn 7 for this and play it through again. You've got braking markers on your left. Now, similar to the previous corners, but especially this one, you want to make sure that you turn in early enough to hook up into the camber. And again, Jeremy brakes pretty much just before the final 100 marker there, is fully over at the left hand side of the circuit, but turns in almost immediately after braking, and then beautifully bleeds out of the brake as he turns in and hooks up nicely with the inside. Now again, hug the inside, keep the car slowed down enough, and then when you feel like you can commit to the throttle, do so. Now Jeremy is extremely close to the inside curb there, which almost catches him out. So you can see he almost clips it there on the exits, and if you do that more aggressively, and you can see that he's just had to feather there, I think as a result of doing that, but he's got away with it. If you do clip the inside curb too aggressively there, it can really unsettle the car and destroy your exit, but you do want to get nice and close to it if you can. Open the wheel up, keep the car nice and settled on the exit, use all of the track so you don't get oversteer, and you can see that Jeremy even takes advantage of this extra extended bit of tarmac on the exit there. Keep the car over to the left hand side, heading down towards turn 8 now, possibly the slowest corner on the whole circuit. Now this is a corner where, like I said earlier, there is a patch of dirt that you can use as your braking reference. You're going to be braking in between the 200 and the 100 marker, but I like to use this patch of dirt as my brake reference. Braking quite hard initially, then turning in quite early. It's quite easy to wash wide and miss this apex, and again, like most of the corners, braking in all the way into that apex and picking up the throttle quite late. And notice here that Jeremy doesn't commit to full throttle. That's because he's in second gear. There's a lot more rear wheel torque in this gear. Doesn't want to overload the rear tyres, or rather ask for too much grip from the rear tyres. But open the steering up, use all of the track through the exit there, bring the car back over to the right hand side into the tricky uphill turn 9. So just play this through. Again, there's a few patches of dirt on the tarmac which you can use as your braking reference, just after that more significant one just there. Now the car will go very, very light here mid corner, so you almost have to just be really patient with the throttle and make sure that you slow the car down enough that you're able to keep a nice tight line through here. And ideally you want to be applying the throttle with the car positioned just on the inside edge, like Jeremy is here, of this concrete paved area. And again, you can see he's in second gear, so being a lot more delicate and progressive with the throttle versus some of the faster corners. And again, using all of the track and more on the exit, but obviously avoiding dropping a wheel onto the grass there. Into turn 10 then. Jeremy doesn't brake at all here, but what he does do is turns in completely flat out initially. So we've just passed the 200 marker and he's turning in completely flat out, and then shortly after he's turned in, roughly in the middle of the circuit, or just before the middle of the circuit, he has a full lift out of the throttle. Now if you are running wide here, it's good to have your foot covering the brake just in case you need the car to rotate a little bit better, because it's really important to hook up with this apex Again, avoiding clipping the curb too hard, that was pretty much perfect. And then on the exit, if you do feel like you're going to run wide, just come out of the throttle briefly, as Jeremy has done so here. I suspect that that was maybe not necessary, because he's still... no, it probably was actually well advised, because he's running pretty wide here. That's about as wide as you want to get on that curb, otherwise you risk dropping a wheel onto the grass as you're trying to approach the last corner on the circuit, turn 11. So we'll play this through now. Not really much of a reference here apart from the end of this wall on the outside. It's going to be just after there where Jeremy brakes, and he's turning in whilst braking. And again, there's a decent amount of camber through here. It's a super high speed corner, and you want to be aiming for this inside curb as your apex, but you don't want to clip it ideally. Now Jeremy does actually clip it this time, but fortunately it's quite minor, and he's able to just about get away with it, and the car stays quite settled. On the exit, just as he apexes there, he commits quite hard on the throttle. A little bit of hesitation. I suspect that that's as a result of being unsure about what the curb would do to the car, but it's fine. So he commits to full throttle, and this is fine on the exit to basically play with the wall here, using all of the track. Carry as much speed as you possibly can through this corner, so that you end up using all of the track through the exit as Jeremy has done so to complete the lap. You can find all setups, replays and telemetry for your own use and analysis on virtualracingschool.com, where you can also book one-on-one tuition with world champions from the likes of Coanda Simsport. Good luck for this week, and feel free to post any questions or comments below. Thanks for watching.